Go live. Okay, so we're going. It should be going live now.
So you're breaking up a bit there, Dale. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, we are live. Hello, everybody.
We're live. We are live.
You can't hear me? I can hear you.
Sorry, Dale. I can't hear you. Your mic. Sorry, I think Dale's mic is off. Sorry, guys. I think Dale's mic is off. I don't know if you can hear me, but I don't know if you can hear him. I'll just text him. Sorry, guys. I think Dale is frozen. I can't hear you. I can hear you now, Dale. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, but yeah, you can't. Can you see
I can
me?
see you fine. Yeah. Can you see me?
Can you see me,
I
Carolyn?
can see you, Dale.
I can see you, but I don't see. Oh, there we go. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about the technical glitches. We're new to this stuff, but welcome to Straight, Sane and Sober with Dale Walsh on Mental Health MHW Warrior TV, and today I'm pleased to have Carolyn Murphy Bennis, the Rainbow Warrior, who has become quite a regular on Warrior TV. So I hope I can ask you some questions that had to answer before, but just welcome everybody, and it's good to have you here. And um, let me see. So, I since I'm the poetic warrior, I was actually going to start with a poem. Can you hear me, okay, Carolyn?
You're breaking up a little bit, but
Can you hear me?
I'm getting the gist of it. Hopefully
Okay.
everybody else can hear us.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me do this. So that brings the mic closer. So, yeah, I wanted to read a poem that's called "Reaching Dale 5.0," and that's the new incarnation of Dale that I've been waiting years to realize. So, the poem goes like this: My life has always been typified by change and true growth towards a better version of myself, but this transformation has been extraordinary because it is the integration into an unknown space where all my crazy pasts I finally replace. You were a model beauty worthy of cloud art, a woman both beauty and art. I met through serendipity only through Christ, to whom I dedicated my soul even before I met you, and realized an ideal I I'd chosen forever to ignore. Not experienced since Black Awakening, which produced the modern epoch for all of humanity, known as Enlightenment, leading to present nuclear age, from which we are reaching fifth dimensional stage. Transforming the essence of planetary life, which is manifesting now as great global strife, but chaos has arisen higher order, and the love of us too is symbolic of true passion that will continuously blossom with the wisdom of. So apparently we're having some troubles
Yeah, I could.
with Facebook.
Okay, I heard half of that, Dale. It was really beautiful, but it is breaking up very badly. I'm just wondering if the listeners can hear us okay. If Adam could.
So that okay.
Sorry, Dale, I can't hear anything. Can't hear anything.
So maybe maybe I'll put it in the private chat.
Just is everybody else hearing us? If anybody could text in to see if. Hi everyone. Just here on my own at the moment. Hopefully we'll get to be able to chat, because I'm really interested in talking to Dale and seeing, having that wonderful connection, because he's interested in poetry as well. So I'm hearing, I can hear myself and see myself clearly. If I don't know if anybody else is hearing us, so sorry about this. But hopefully Dale will be back in a second. Yeah, I think he's going to do some reading for us, and yeah, I'm not sure if we're hearing. We're going to have to cancel. Hi,
no,
Dan.
we won't cancel it every time at the stream.
Trying something else, Dale?
I am.
Good man. That's a little bit tough. A little bit clearer now.
Please?
You're still breaking up, but a little bit clearer. You're frozen on me.
There we go. Are we?
Sorry about this. Serious technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to do, Dave? Do you want to continue, or do you want to reschedule? What do you think?
We'll continue.
Okay.
Can you see me and hear now?
You're
can you hear me?
You're breaking up pretty badly, but you can try and ask me maybe some questions. If you ask me a question, I'll talk for a bit if you like, and maybe that'll get us through.
Okay, well, my first question is, what was the inspiration of the Rainbow Warrior?
Inspiration for the Rainbow Warrior children's book? Yeah, well, on an interview previously, I had talked a little bit about, the direction that my life had taken. Basically, I'm a graphic designer by profession. I love creativity. I love children, and I had kind of, gone into education as well as being running my own design company, and then I it came to a point where I was kind of looking for the deeper meaning behind reality and stuff like that. So I took some time out, and in my spare time was renovating a cottage in the west of Ireland. And I suppose during that time I kind of got really close to nature and really close to a deeper sense of myself, and very deeply connected to nature. And then when I came back to Dublin, there was an incident that happened with a couple of my kids, and they were going to a camp. And I could see there were loads of children around that were really kind of suffering from anxiety. And I started to get very concerned about the amount of anxiety that seemed to be showing up in younger children today. So I came back from that camp that day, and I just kind of put my thinking hat on, and in a kind of a flow of consciousness, I wrote the character of the Rainbow Warrior. The Rainbow Warrior was this kind of the essence of ourselves, like the unseen kind of, I called it the Rainbow Warrior, such like our truth, our creative being, our consciousness, I guess, and you know how that's full of imagination, and it's our true nature. It's full of joy, imagination. It's you know, it's spontaneous. And then I put in with it into the book as well some mindfulness training, so how children can be connected to their breath, and then connected to how they can listen and be, you know, deep listening when they're talking to other people. So connected to other people, and then connected to nature, and how nature, I try to teach like how oneness, really the oneness of everything, and how everything is connected, and that we're like one big happy family, you know, and trying to get that into the minds of children from an early age, I guess, you know. And the pictures, then I illustrated it as well. So there's lots of really color. Tried to use colors of the rainbow all the way through it. So there's no actual character, but it's everything. It's everything that you see in your day-to-day life, you know, in the on the trees and the birds, and you know, the people around us, and the connection with ourselves, and then like giving them a chance to kind of in the morning to think of that, and to kind of fill themselves with that kind of energetic positivity, I suppose, and then before they go to bed at night to kind of, you know, keep checking in to themselves and back to themselves all the time. And then I say, you know, once you had that tool to kind of come back to your breath, then, you know, you're ready for anything, and you can burst into the world and become be the rainbow warrior and just do what you came here to do. So that was the inspiration. It was kind of a mindfulness and empowerment book for kids. And funnily enough, actually, I started it just a year before the COVID hit. And I was talking about it with Kerry Burr on the coffee morning, just on Monday. And I was saying how, you know, got this really intuitive hit that this is really, really important, and that I had to write this, and I had to get it published, and I had to get it, you know, so I had to kind of really push to get this done. And it took me about a year. And then it came out and it was launched on Amazon worldwide on the exact day that the lockdown happened in Ireland, the first day of the lockdown. And then it became, people were shocked because it was something that was really needed, because, you know, children were affected mostly by anxiety and, you know, being in isolation. And also the rainbow became the symbol for children to kind of keep them happy and keep them motivated and stuff like that. So, you know, it was really on point. It was just exactly on that day. So it was like, I was so glad I followed my intuition, you know, and I got it published in time, you know. So yeah, just follow that intuition that I have, you know.
You touched on a lot of themes in that, but one thing that I was sort of like struck is the fact that you're adding to like the mythology of Ireland, Celtics, the Celtic myth, modern new character, you know, where among all that pantheon of sprites and leprechauns and everything else that goes with the mystical Irish experience, and I thought that was very good. And I thought I loved the book. I don't have the paperback yet. I got it on Kindle, so I've just got like the black and white drawings. But I'm looking forward to getting the real book and seeing your pictures and color and everything. But it was like very inspirational, and it was but extremely deep message that you had. And you know, the Rainbow Warrior was like an admirable character, and just like that sort of Earth Mother, essence that she represents.
Yes, and you very well, you picked up on an awful lot of themes there that I expand on a little bit, Dale. Very intuitive there, because basically it reflected my own spiritual awakening. I had this kind of, you know, massive kind of spiritual awakening and flowering of my consciousness. It just kind of happened. It was like as if, you know, it was time for me to bloom and blossom and flourish. And that's what I called my new company, actually, Flourish by Design, and it's around conscious design as well. And it's funny how the book, The Rainbow Warrior, kind of was the first thing to come out of that, because I had gone into that deep reflection I was kind of guided into it as such. And, you know, so basically all the insights and everything that you've talked about in your poem was kind of, you know, that deep understanding of oneness and the unity consciousness as such that I gained in that time, in that self-realization, you know. And I suppose that's a very extremely powerful thing to happen to you, and then you become very, you know, very I suppose full of conviction that you want to bring that then understanding to the world. And the first people that I wanted to bring it to was the children. And I also felt as well that there was the hidden mythology within the Irish culture of Celtic spirituality needed to be revived as well. And like I'm kind of saying, and I actually just sent out a kind of proclamation last week about, like, I see this as like the great renaissance of humanity, where we're bringing, you know, spirituality, science, technology, all the faculties of the human mind together, and we're kind of, you know, there's a great possibility to really kind of come into this higher consciousness, you know. And I suppose the mythology of the Celtic spirituality is symbolized within the book as well, within the Tree of Life, and there's the eternity symbol, which is kind of, it looks like it's Hinduism, but it's actually ancient Celtic symbols of the kind of, it's like it looks like a yoga posture, but it has a child inside. Yeah.
On the side, right?
Sorry, Dale?
Oh, okay. So I was just going to say that it really made me think of like all the conscious, you know, raising that people are talking about, but you said it in such a simple, concrete manner in 30 pages, whereas everybody else is going on about the Christ conscious 2 hours on YouTube, and you know, I love the way you just like condense the whole shebang into one little thing. But one thing that you said that made me think is that you said went through spiritual enlightenment, and I think a lot of people, including through such a spiritual enlightenment, they end up in a lot of trouble. And I know your father was like a psychiatric. He worked at a psychiatric hospital. So, do you think that was like a big factor in why you could just have like this personal spiritual enlightenment and not get involved with like ghosts or craziness, or you know, I mean, because it must have been brought up a lot of like deep feeling. How did you control those?
So I got half of that. I think I got your question about. I'll just say it back to you because I broke it up a bit.
Well,
was it about? Sorry, about my father being a psychiatric nurse and my.
Basically, basically, I was asking, how did you go through spiritual enlightenment without the drama of spiritual
To be
enlightenment?
quite honest, I think that.
Did you get that?
Yes, I did. How did I do without drugs? How did that happen without drugs? Is that right? Yeah. Well, basically.
Well, not necessarily with drugs, but with me, when enlightenment, I had a lot of drugs, but also I got in a lot of trouble. And, you know, I got hospitalized and everything. And that seems to be a lot of people who go through spiritual and what one of your guests called a spiritual emergency.
Yeah.
And you seem to have like flowed through it effortlessly.
Yeah, it was very unusual, Dale, because like that, I'll just explain a little bit. Like, I suppose I look back and I've kind of reflected since on like maybe what I think actually it was kind of given a little bit of a recap. It was like I think my consciousness was taken up, like if I became a bird as such, and I was kind of flown back into my childhood, and then I was brought to the future, and I was shown like kind of thing. Why maybe it was kind of like a trajectory really. So basically kind of I was always a contemplative. That's not a word that's used very often nowadays. We hear a lot about meditation, and you don't hear much about contemplation. So as a child, I was always a deep thinker, and I was always kind of purifying my consciousness. So like even when I was a very small child, I would questioning, like, say, for example, like, you know, I would wonder what was jealousy, and I didn't like the feeling of jealousy in my body, like, and what could I do about that? And I kind of was trying to transcend jealousy, like from when I was 7, kind of thing, you know, and I was trying to purify. Now I understand I was doing that because I was trying to always choose love, you know, I was always trying to choose that more beautiful feeling, you know. So whatever kind of obstacles that came in my life, I always tried to go higher. You know, I always tried to choose a higher path, you know, and I tried to kind of, instead of kind of maybe, I just seen it as a kind of a challenge, or maybe the only thing to do was to go to the higher ground and kind of try to eliminate those kind of negative connotations within character as such, you know. So as I went through life, I suppose that kind of increased, and then it got to the stage where kind of everything in my life, you know, say materialism, started to kind of fall away, and I had absolutely no interest in material things as such. So like, you know, like I would have found it very unsatisfying shopping, and I would have found it very unsatisfying kind of, and even when I got to, it's funny, we were talking about studying and stuff like that at one stage, and I went deep into study, and I thought that was going to give me what, you know, satisfaction. And then I kind of realized, it got to the stage where I said to myself, nothing, I'm not going to attach myself to anything that isn't real. And the only thing that is actually I could have had equated was love. Everything else is an illusion. So I kind of had got to that stage, and I entered a kind of a very deep inner peace. And then it kind of like as if I started to be guided then to the higher states. And it was really unusual because I never studied anything about spirituality. I never read about spirituality. I never knew anything about it. I had no knowledge I didn't know anything about seeker. I didn't know anything like that. It was very organic. It was very organic and natural. And then once I had entered that kind of oneness state, and I called it Eden as such, you know, I lasted there for about 2 weeks, and then I had the choice of whether to kind of, you know, here in India they say you could disappear and move on, or turn around and come back and help humanity. So that's where I kind of said, no, I have a lot to do, kind of thing. So then I started studying about spirituality and trying to understand what actually happened, trying to find a language to explain it, trying to kind of, you know, write the books and talk about it, and trying to find a new language for it, a contemporary language for it, and to try to kind of give it to contemporary, accessible, simple way of talking about spirituality that would be accessible to the everyday person and every child and every, you know, and actually a true sense of spirituality, rather than, you know, religious spirituality as such, you know. So it's kind of, to me, it's connecting with your life force, and, you know, to kind of become true, find your own truth as such in yourself, and then, you know, to kind of, I do think that it was very unusual the way it happened for me. And I do think now that I think it was accelerated really maybe for me because I was needed, you know, my talents were needed at this time. And I know a lot of things that I have to create in the world and things that I have to do. So it's kind of like, I just think I've been recruited as such, you know, and maybe that I have a certain disposition and a simplicity that people kind of find refreshing as such, you know. Maybe that's it, you know. And with Flourish by Design, going to be a lot from that as well, around kind of teaching people more of what all the insights that I gained, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a great need for simplicity and spirituality at this moment, because everybody like talks about the same concepts and everything, but it's like you say love, and means a different thing for every person. A
Yeah.
spiritual community seems to be saying, a lot of things that, I think that's why I love the Rainbow Warrior and the simplicity of it so much. I told you about Banks and the three principles, but he basically was Scottish welder in Canada who had a revelation and connected experience with God, and these three principles, which universal consciousness and universal, and he said that all human experience is based upon these three things, and that's such a simple philosophy. And he said, if it's complex, it's coming from the mind, but if it's simple, it's coming from the spirit.
Yeah.
So I really applaud your simplicity in the Rainbow Warrior.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I think I also published the Clear Republic of Free State of Mind as well, and that's some of the poems that kind of I wrote during the journey, so like different realizations, along the kind of path. So I thought that was kind of helpful for people, and I published that in January, and that kind of was like that was to specifically I dedicated to the Irish people because of the oppressive suppression that they've had to kind of live through within everything that's happening with the with the church in Ireland and stuff. There's been so much institutional abuse, and I really feel that the mental health issues in Ireland are coming from that fracture, from their rootedness in their connection with their spirituality and what they've had relied on for many decades through troubled times and stuff, and now it's been kind of fractured. So what I did see happening in the lockdown was that people were going back to nature, and I thought that was amazing because Celtic spirituality was always based around nature, and it was always taught like that. St. Patrick, when came, he talked about he kind of took the Celtic spirituality and he mixed it with Christianity as such, and that's why we have the Celtic cross, because we have the cross in a circle is the oneness as such, and they were overlaid over each other, and so it was like the two traditions, and the two traditions in Ireland are still overlaid over each other, so I'm kind of trying to go back to the more ancient and bring that back and try to, because it's like you said, it's so simple and it's easy to understand, and it's connected, and it's a personal, intimate relationship, and nature is kind of the teacher as such, that when you look at nature and you start to ponder on, what appears within your vision as such, and you start to question that, there's great teaching in that. So that it kind of takes away from the idea of the guru as such, and it really puts you back into right relationship with life, and connected back to your own kind of truth. That's the kind of the vein of my writing. And also, it's all about the sun as well, and the sun is part of the Celtic spirituality as well, and that's the symbol of like the source of life itself. The presence of the loving sun. That's what I call presence as such. That's the way I describe it, because it's a warm, loving presence as such. Yeah.
So one thing about spirituality that I think people tend to overlook, and I think you highlighted so well in your book. I haven't read your second book yet. I will, but what you highlighted so well in Rainbow Warriors, the spirituality, and how you can't get through it through here. You have to get through it through here, through the heart.
That's it.
And just like sense the intuitive goodness of the universe and of God, or whatever you want to call it. But and that brings up another question, which I don't know if you want to talk about the intuitive nature, or whether you want to hear this next question, because I think this is like, I think it's an important point because you said that you were right.
Sorry, Dale, I didn't
You
hear.
were always guided by love.
Yeah, well, I would say I didn't really.
You were always guided by love.
I hear that. Yeah, actually, I you could say that, but I probably wouldn't have. I wouldn't have said that myself. I would have said that I always had the connection with home as such. That's what I would say. I had a connection with home. And then I was kind of. I just went. I just
Right.
went home, and then I came back again. Anyway, that's what I call it. It's kind of like it's.
Right.
You could say love, but then, like you say, love has many different interpretations as such. But you could say the source of all love, we'll say. So I was always in love with the source of all love as such,
Right.
and follow that kind of beautiful feeling. It's like beauty,
Question
basically.
I was going to the question I was going to ask is, they say love and fear are the two qualities that make up the
That's it.
world.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, were there ever any times where you were like where you were fearful, or where a fear came up that maybe something, maybe even that you were losing your mind, or were there any fearful moments that that you can really think of, or was it like a pretty clear sailing?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually, Dale, question to ask, because I would say that 7 years ago, like obviously I had ups and downs all the way through my life. I had a connection, and when I was small, I used to always say to my mom that I had a really important thing to do. I was born with a really important thing to do. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's really important, and I'm going to have to do it. And I didn't know what that was, but I kind of brought, that was kind of like part of a kind of guidance that I kind of had. But I would say that I definitely suffered from childhood and stuff. I would say a sense of separation. So I would say that there was the two elements within me as a child was the feeling of this kind of, what I call it in one of my poems, is the surge. So this really strong surge in my chest, which was kind of like as if you could say that was love. That was like, wanting to go forward, wanting to kind of like the will to live and to kind of connect with people and to be, like a force as such. And it was really strong in my chest. I could remember as a child even take over my being as such, because it was so strong. And then I'd have this other horrible feeling, and that was a feeling of like, I would say, the feeling of separation, the feeling of not being alone in my own body, like that feeling of kind of a terrible loneliness as such. So I think I couldn't understand as a child as well why, like, for example, my brother, I couldn't feel him. Like, how was I in my head, I felt we were one. We were all one thing, but I couldn't
Right.
understand that he was separate. Like when he touched his hand, and why couldn't I feel that? Because we were one being, like, and I just couldn't. So this was kind of like, I suppose, that horrible feeling of separation. So that was, and I think they're the two forces I think that are at play, like you say, love and fear. So the fear really is the fear of separation, the fear of the loneliness that we feel because we're in our separate bodies. But we're in our separate bodies because we have to progress into our inner consciousness. Until we get to the higher consciousness, then we realize that we're all one, we're all connected. But it's kind of like, so those are the two forces, the separateness and the oneness, such, and they play. That's the dynamo, like, of life. The dynamic movement of life. It has to be, those polar opposites from life to kind of evolve as such, but I think when I come back to, like, say what you said about that feeling as an adult, I definitely, like, I would have had dips of, not major depression, but like, being maybe depressed around, I'll tell you, like, say if you got to the stage where you felt you know, oh, I need to get this particular job, and then you get the job and you realize that didn't actually fulfill me, or I need to have this relationship, and then you got the relationship and that didn't do it. You know, this kind of like, and you get to a plateau and you'd feel it was kind of a depressed feeling as such, you know. And then I did have like anxiety. I suffered from anxiety because I was I only realized, you know, in my 30s that I kind of suffered from that, and I started into mindfulness then and stuff. But I had no major kind of, you know, mental health issues or anything like that. But I do think that about 7 years ago, when the kind of inner journey happened, and I was gone, I kind of went into kind of an introspection. So when I'm saying that, like, I was still in my normal day-to-day life and everything like that, but my awareness was within as such, you know. So instead of like being interested in anything that was happening in the world, I was more interested about discovering my own consciousness as such. And that was kind of like, if that was probably the most difficult part, because it was like as if I was going into a maze. And it was like, but I had a guidance. So it was like as if there was a candle that was bringing me through. The only way I could describe it is like I was going through, I was in darkness, but I was being brought through the darkness with this candlelight. And I just kept following the candle all the time. But there was a lot of kind of dark feelings, and, you know, as if you were in this ominous place as such. And, you know, the Divine Comedy, that's what it reminded me of, the 7 levels. Do you ever, you know, the Divine Comedy? It's
Right.
that's the poem that I thought that's exactly what it describes it as, all those kind of different levels of consciousness that you have to kind of travel through. But I just kind of kept following this beautiful kind of feeling. It was like a light as such, and I knew I just brought me through, and then out the other side of the maze as such, you know. So that was kind of the darkest part of the journey, I'll say. And I was lucky to come out of the maze, I think, you know, because I do think that some people have gone maybe into that maze and haven't come out of it, you know, and that has been, you know, some people would have be on the verge of enlightenment, and then it turns into a chronic mental illness or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And, you know, I think it's just, I do think it was a cocktail of kind of my disposition, my type of way of thinking, my, you know, genetics. I don't know what it was, but the capacity I had within myself to be able to work that out. Like, I'm a bit of a code breaker. I'm not like a master code breaker. So I kind of was able to work it out as such, you know. Yeah. But actually, Dale,
So the quote that came to no, the quote that came to my mind was the light shall be in darkness, and darkness shall never overwhelm the light.
Yeah. That's it. But actually, I do think that I have my uncles to thank, because I think my 2 uncles previous, I had my uncle that had schizophrenia, and before that there was another uncle. They were extremely bright men, and they were mathematicians. So I do think I was another version of that, but I had a different mix. So I had I just made it to the maze, and I followed the light. And maybe some people don't follow to get consumed by the darkness, you know, but I definitely just followed that beautiful light, and I found my way through pretty quickly, actually. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was asking about before. Is, you know, because the experience you're describing, you know, is very to the people who describe when they're like having a spiritual emergency, as your first guest said, spiritual crisis, and light goes out and they're in the darkness and they don't know what to do. And I think, you know, you were very fortunate, but I think you were also chosen to be able to walk through that darkness with always with the light, you know. So
Yeah.
I think you have a special mission, Carolyn, you know. So
Yes.
yeah, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Well, I feel the big responsibility, the fact that I did get through. And I wrote a quote, I think last week. It was great. It was with great ability comes greater responsibility. So I think that's the rest of my
Right.
time here will be very busy.
And what do you foresee? Say in the next 5 years, what do you foresee for yourself?
In the next 5 years,
I mean, and yeah, and I mean, where do you've got the basic enlightenment, and you've had the experience of being, spiritually enlightened and everything. Do you? I mean, I know the mental health warriors will like spread out and like conquer the world and end the stigma and everything. But do you see on your personal journey? Do you ever think about, or do you have a vision of what the say the next 5 years will bring?
yeah. Well, I would say that I flourish by design is going to be, a really big. It's going to be the kind of the ship that everything will come off of. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to be starting retreats and lots of courses and moving into ethics and business and really trying to change the consciousness of business, um, consciousness of education, and also self-awareness, teaching self-awareness. So getting people to look within and become self-aware of their own
Right.
patterns, their own consciousness, their own tapping into their kind of into their creativity and really trying to get get people to become self-aware as such, like know thyself as such, and going into like innovation and trying to um I think I've disappeared there, and also going into innovation and eco-innovation and trying to really kind of create this tsunami of innovation that needs to happen around eco products. And I'm really interested in connecting with the UN and trying to link in kind of businesses and community to see how we can fight the global warming, and because we need to basically what we need to do is harness human potential and get it to work to be to become solving problem solvers in the world for the issues that we have today. And if we can crack people's mental health and get that right, get that balance, we're going to free an awful lot of intelligence to be able to be used on in the way that we need. That we need people's intelligence to be unlocked so that we can we can problem solve and come up with these new innovative ideas and to tackle climate change. And it's very doable, but people need to be trained to kind of to unlock that, would say. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've been that I think is completely new is that kids, little kids, like I can't remember that girl from Finland or Scott or Sweden, but the whole movement of like children like saying parents and to their elders, they say you gotta stop, you're destroying the planet, and that type of consciousness is like just I mean I think that's the type of consciousness you were trying to tap into in the Rainbow Warrior of these enlightened children who will lead the world rather than depending on governments or anything, and just like one by one individually. And I think that's for me in my coaching and in my life itself, service is like the number one priority. The ability to serve people and to help people. I'm just like amazed at it, like how enlightened the younger generations have become, because they're already fighting for the world once.
Yeah. Yeah, we need each individual to start kind of being kind of start finding their own self-governance as such, instead of waiting for governments to govern them as such. So to empower the people is the main thing. And children today definitely, I suppose, can have a fabulous, they're very creative, but I do think that it's our age, like my age, the middle age, is we really need to step up and start to kind of do our own inner work, because children are meant not here to solve the problem. They're supposed to be having their childhood. Their childhood is vitally important for their own their mental health going forward. So they shouldn't be relied upon. They shouldn't be out the ones that should be out marching the streets. It should be us. The adults have to take responsibility, for what's happening. Like, we're the adults. We're the ones that, definitely it's brilliant that the younger people are doing it, but why aren't the middle-aged people, who are actually the ones that are, have most power? But I would say that enlightened leadership is vitally important. So I think anyone who's, voting, people into government in any country, definitely look at them and see if they have a kind of a unity consciousness, or if they're anyway diverse, trying to divide people in their thinking. That's not something that you want, because that polarizing kind of concept for leadership is you're looking for somebody who's going to want to unite and collaborate and build bridges, and that has everybody in mind as such, and so I would say that it's better, to be conscious of what we could do as citizens, is very careful about who we're voting in to government. It's not definitely down to government, but definitely that has. So I'd say entrepreneurship, innovation, consciousness around leadership, and promoting a more inclusive, enlightened leadership is, and then promote and supporting children in education is the way to go.
Right. So I think we got. I'm going to leave you with a doozy question. But the question is, how do you between spirituality and how do you think they can be integrated into like a unified consciousness?
Sorry, I didn't. I just got unified consciousness there. I didn't hear the question. Could you repeat it, please?
I said, what do you see as the relationship between mental health and spirituality, and spirituality, and how do you see them being integrated into a unified consciousness?
Yes, well, basically, what happened? Well, mental health is balance. So when your mental health is when you have full mental health, you're in balance. But what that does then, it kind of opens you up to the higher consciousness, which is kind of like it's like as if I suppose the way in all the traditions, people hold their hands together like this, in a prayer position. And but really what it is, that's showing our kind of the balance. So when the balance is there, then you start getting your life force starts to enter into your body as such, as you would say, the light, as people use that word, the light of consciousness. So basically, the promotion of mental health is massively important, because that's going to improve our access to our intuition. And our intuition is where all the genius comes from, So really what happens is that when the more you can kind of do your inner work, the more you can release those negative, conditionings and stuff like that, the better your mental health it increases. And then the more insights and inspiration and that you have access to, and then you can put that into the world. So it's so mental, I would say, spiritual health is what comes from really good mental health, and that's when intuition starts, entering into the world. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to get to. Yeah.
So, well, I just think that all mental health, all mental, I call it psychic affect. I don't use the word mental illness. We still use mental illness in the United States, So, mental health is when someone is like healthy, and mental illness is when somebody's like having situations. But I feel that, and basically, that all mental illness has as its roots a spiritual component, a spiritual
Yes.
dissatisfaction, or a spiritual separation.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because really, the way I look at it is, it's like, life is designed for us to get to reach that higher state of consciousness. And basically, as we go through life, we come across a lot of challenges and lots of, dips and turns. And, we're born into kind of a darker consciousness, into a challenging environment, we'll say. And I suppose when I see people kind of in dark places as such, I always feel like it's kind of like a transition period as such, that it's an opportunity to kind of recreate themselves, and to kind of start to because really, in truth, like, we're always updating ourselves, so our identity is changing all the time. So sometimes when we have issues, it's important to kind of get help and try to move past that challenging point in your life as such. And then when you come out of that, like, you're like a new person again, and you've learned an awful lot, and you've gained a lot of wisdom from it. So a lot of the time, our if we can try to go to the kind of higher ground, as I was saying, each time, and try to consciously progress ourselves, and to kind of not to and to get help, and like to ask for help, and to reach out to people and stuff to get support, because we can get trapped in those negative states of mind, and they can be very hard to get out of, once you get trapped into something that's a dark place as such, so I think the best thing to do really is to have a daily practice of something that kind of gives you joy, and connects you to life, and connects you to the beauty of life, and to start to see life as being beautiful. And try to, whether it's music, or going for walks, or making sure you're looking after yourself,
Right.
making sure that you're drinking water, and you're looking after, really to start to, because I think that helps, that definitely helps kind of lessen the bumps in the road, and connecting to your joy is massive, that is a spiritual practice as such, and to get you a long way, to try and keep that, it's really important. That's kind of the light. That's the light, just like the candle. Yeah.
I think if the world adopted motto to connect to your joys, and we'd have Eden within 2 weeks. So, and just so many people, I think, have forgotten what joy is, and they get so, especially with the lockdowns and the pandemic and everything. There's like, maybe now the lockdowns are ending and everything, that maybe people would just be so joyful that they get out naturally, will like have a transformational effect on the world, but
yeah, I think
we can always help.
Yeah, and Dale, I would say that life will meet you halfway. So there is the force of life is built in a way that actually it's like a child reaching up to an adult's hand. The way if a child reaches its hand up to hold your hand when they're really small, and you reach down to hold their hand. That's the relationship that life is like. So if you start to reach out to look for that kind of innate kind of sense of joy within your life, then life will meet you with that as well. It's a relationship. I think people think they have to do it on their own as such, but there is that beautiful relationship that will start to do its work within you. So it starts to happen on the unseen level as such. But you have to be you need to um, meet it halfway as such. So it's kind of when you start to invite joy in, joy starts to invite come into the door as such. Yeah, so it's kind of like
Well,
that's it. There's a movement together, coming together. This is who, because that's dualism.
right.
Dualism is two, and then as you get closer and closer, then you meet joy. As that oneness. Become.
Well, I have a more optimistic view of things. I think the universe will meet us like 80% of the way if we
Yeah,
just make the effort for 20%. Because yeah, the universe is like so much greater than when you really consider Earth and even humanity. I mean, how much is 6 feet tall in comparison to like 100 million light years? I mean, we're so small, and people take themselves so seriously and think everything is important, whereas actually, in the scope of the universe, we aren't even heard. Just spinning around the sun every day, and so I think that's something that I try to always keep in mind is like how in fact incredibly big and vast and benevolent loving universe always is. But do you have any closing words for us, Carolyn? I think our time's about up, but
yeah.
have any closing words that you like to leave us with?
Yeah, well, it's just, I suppose, like that to say that it's important to understand like your uniqueness is really vitally important in the world. Everybody's unique. There's only one version of each of us, and that's a really good, a nice kind of practice to kind of reflection, I suppose, to leave you with. To try and think of that like we're in a vast universe, but in this vast universe, there's only one of you, nobody else like you in the whole of
Right.
the universe, which is really amazing. So there's a unique essence within each person that is vitally important, and that and that's the message in the Rainbow Warrior as well, that that each person has a unique purpose in the world, and to connect to that, because even though we're
I, I think it's not only an essence and a purpose, but everybody has a unique mission that they came to Earth to accomplish.
that's
And I think too many people get in the gravity well of Earth, and they forget that they came here for a mission.
That's it, yeah. And like that,
So
we're all connected, but we're all unique and individual as well. So it's like both, just try to remember that, yeah. So definitely, yeah, everybody has their own unique job in the world. So I suppose, like the Rainbow Warrior, go out and do what you came here to do. That's the message of the Rainbow Warrior.
yeah, it's been a great pleasure having you today, Carolyn. And I just want to say that the mental health warriors are self-funded, so any contributions would be highly appreciated. You can send them to PayPal at mhwarrior99@gmail.com. It's on the ticker at the bottom. So any donations are always welcome because on a television network like our leader Adam is doing. So, and it's been a great pleasure talking with you, Carolyn, and I hope you found it interesting as I did. And have a good day, and everybody have a great day, and thank you for attending. So, good night.
Thank you very much, Dale, for having me on. I really enjoyed it. It was a pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Bye.